good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to another episode of Everybody Loves Bliss. I'm Bliss, and joining me on the other side of the world somewhere is my co-host Ross Cooper. Say hi to the people, Ross Cooper.
What up, people?
Ross Cooper, I'm
Yeah,
starting the second audio video episode of Everybody Loves Bliss. I'm excited. How you doing?
I'm pretty awesome. I am pretty awesome.
I like that. I like it when you're awesome. It's a good thing. I like it when you're awesome. Listen, let's go ahead and get into it. Last episode, we it was a short episode because we were just trying to get things right, doing
Right,
this
right.
next step. So we kind of touched on your new president, President Biden, in the inauguration, your new president, and we promised. What did we promise? What was our promise?
We promised a lot. We promised we'd be patient and wait, try to keep the optimism going, and see how things unfold. And oh boy, yeah, about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. We did. So yeah, we promised to be optimistic. So okay. So I'm gonna go back for a second to the actual inauguration because people are asking me why didn't I mention certain things like Michelle Obama's stunning outfit. I didn't say anything about it. So, people hit me up and like, well, what about, you didn't mention, okay, it was Michelle Obama in the crimson outfit. It was stunning. And love to the designer, Sergio Hudson, who happened to be, actually, this is a true story. I am following Sergio Hudson on Instagram. I was following him prior to that outfit because I had seen his work, loved his work, did not realize until just a few days ago that he designed Michelle Obama's lovely ensemble, the cranberry burgundy, crimsony, long pantsuit, long. Oh, the what? Don't make. Okay, he's making a face for you all listening in. And I'm just saying, I'm hitting the stuff that people hit me up on. Not the
Mhm.
most important thing, not what we're going to be covering in this podcast, but I'm getting this out of the way. It was a lovely outfit.
Mhm.
I'm remiss for not mentioning it. It was great. She looked beautiful. She did. She looked beautiful. You remember you said that people want, they want symbolism. She gave him the outfit. I mentioned an outfit. Don't I'm doing
There.
listen, I'm just doing what the people wanted. They wanted me to mention the outfit. I mentioned the outfit. It was beautiful. Also, Amanda Gorman, the poet, the beautiful young 22-year-old who read the lovely poem. The poem I have still not heard the whole thing of because I have not. I'm sorry. I have a multitude, but what I heard was beautiful, and I'm going to trust the multitudes of people, including our listeners, who said the poem was beautiful. I trust that. I trust that she's amazing. I know that she just got a modeling contract. Let's get all of that out of the way. I'm very proud of her. I'm very happy. Why are you making that face? People see now that we're doing this video thing. Now I gotta address my co-host's facial expressions now because for the listeners, he's making a funny. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm making a face because God, we're doing it again. You're gonna make me that guy, and I'm trying not to be that guy because it's like, oh my gosh, Michelle's outfit was awesome, and Kamala's outfit was awesome, and the poem was dope. Now, actually, the poem really was good. No nonsense there. The poem really was good. Um,
Okay, so
but at the end of the day, wow, so many bills got paid with that outfit. Oh wait, they didn't.
but hold on. Support Black business. Okay, support Black business.
Okay.
So Michelle Obama and also
Mm-hmm.
Kamala, that's her name, Kamala, supported Black business because she also used Sergio to make one of her outfits as well. So support Black business. He did a beautiful job. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
just wanted
will.
to get it out before I forgot it because it is not it's not the major topic of this discussion tonight because we're going to talk about your new president's executive orders.
We
that
gonna stop that. We gonna stop this yo president thing. We're not gonna do this all night.
I'm
We're not gonna do this all night. That is
okay.
not my guy.
The good president, and I know that there are some listeners because I have already gotten notices that people want me to be hopeful. I am being hopeful, but I'm also going to be truthful because what I did was I actually went through and read the executive orders, some of them.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of the
Hmm.
people who are clapping and jumping up and down, I'm going to bet did not read the executive orders.
Ooh, somebody want all the smoke. All right, let's go.
I don't want all the smoke. I just want look. This podcast is about telling the truth. I'm. This is about tell. I'm still hopeful, but we gonna tell some truth tonight. What? What?
I admire you being hopeful at this point. I admire you being hopeful because this is gonna sound, and I know we're gonna get to it, but my thing is
What?
you recall that your friend in mind, Mr. O'Shea Jackson, Ice Cube, had a nice plan. He was pretty much told to sit down and shut up because there was already a plan in place. There's a lift every voice plan. It was outlined and everything. So, as you're going to talk about very soon, I'm sure, the
Mhm.
executive order that had already been put in place. My question is, so when do we get to the lift every voice plan? When does that happen?
Oh, it's happening. That's all I'm gonna say. It's happening. We're gonna talk about it. It's happening.
Okay,
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So let's start with the positives. How about that?
absolutely.
Some of the things that I really I am hopeful about, even though I have some questions. Um, so one of the things that President Biden, Joe Biden, he has put a moratorium of sorts on the private prison organizations, corporations, because they're just big business.
Right.
So what he's done is he's going to decline to renew their contracts. So we're going to
Wow.
stop what we interpret that to mean is that we're going to minimize, eventually eliminate private prisons in the United States because they're big corporations and they make a lot of money. I think that's a positive.
Mm.
Oh boy, look at you. Look at
I was
you.
gonna no, I was gonna say that's a really big deal considering who it's coming from, and I'm not being facetious in this
Because he
instance.
helped fill them up.
Exactly. So that's a really big deal there. Oh,
Ross,
okay.
Ross, give me a second. Turn your mic up, babe. Like we're listen, we're adjusting because I'm not hearing you as well. I want everyone to hear
Okay.
what you just said. Say what you just said again, sir, because it is interesting coming from Biden. Oh, oh, you just
Oh,
gave all the business. I didn't know what that was hanging off the. But go ahead.
well,
For
this
those
was
wait for those in audio land, we you just dropped the mic. I mean the video. Oh Lord, here we go. Let me take a sip. Go ahead, because we
all
just
right.
getting used to this. Say it again.
What I was saying was, it's pretty interesting that he's the guy doing this, given he's also one of the key authors of the crime bill. So, not being facetious at all, great way to make amends there. Honestly, no nonsense. Great way to make amends.
Is it?
It's a start. It's
Are you being sarcastic?
goes against what the crime bill was doing. So yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. Here's my question for you. How long are those contracts? How long are the contracts generally?
I don't know.
That's
That's the thing. I don't know.
okay. I don't know either. And I really should have read it's just a thought that came to mind while we were talking. Like how like is this gonna happen in his term? Like would the renewal happen in his term anyway? Or is this something that would have nothing to do with his term?
Good
I don't
point.
know. It's just a question. I'm still keeping it as a positive. How about that?
Yeah, we'll take it.
I'll take
It's
it.
a start. I'll take it.
Okay. So another positive, this is a little vague, but I'm gonna tell you what I hope that this means. He's going to be expanding on the Voting Rights Act, which is now, by the way, the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. So the Voting Rights Act of 1965 is now the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act, for those of you who did not know that. So he's going to be expanding on that. So we recognize that Black folks coming together, and folks all, but when we talk about disparities when it comes to voting, basically our community, Black folks in poor communities, mostly Black folks and who are Black and poor, but Black folks have issues with voting. It's really never so much an issue on the registration, because we do a real good job at getting out and getting folks registered. It's when you go to vote and all of a sudden the folks at the polls don't know who you are, or you need 50,000 pieces of ID. So I'm hoping that it addresses the access issue to the polls. I'm hoping that's what it does. And I'm also hoping that we're going to figure out a way to handle voting rights for people who are felons, or have been felons, or have felonies, however we want to say that. So we've got to address those issues. So I'm hoping, because the language is very vague on some of these executive orders. It's like we're going to expand on what does that even mean? So, and I'm finding that to be the case. Let me just say, on a lot of these executive orders, they're very vague. So I don't, how did you interpret that?
I'm with you. It's not concise enough to really say that. It sounds good, but with most things, I'm guessing the devil's going to be in the details. And when you start trying to get into the minutiae of the details, it's like, well, wait, what does this really mean? I can infer it. I can kind of see where you're going. But as you and I both know, sometimes the way things look and how they play out are two totally different things. I'd like to be happy. It sounds like, okay, this is going to be a good thing. But let's see how it goes for real.
Right. So that's another one of those, I don't know what that means. So we got another one that I think is good. He's going to begin more interaction with the Native American community. The word consultation and discussion with Native American tribes. I hope that means you won't be drilling on sacred land, and that you will be putting money into that community. Because having conversation, meaning I'll let you know when we're going to be drilling on your land, is very different from I'm consulting with you for the needs of your community. So this very vague language, but I'm going to take it as a positive. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, we got to take it as a positive, right? No?
We want to take it as a positive, but we have to exercise a little caution because, like the statement you just mentioned, the language is broad and vague, kind of like the term people of color, kind of like the term minorities. And a lot of Black folk get excited when they see these terms, not realizing, wait, that's broad. It's not just us, that's broad. So we'll take it as a positive. Let's see how it plays out.
Yes. Yeah, but we still don't know. Yeah. So okay, so we've got in the wall. We're gonna stop building the wall that I think we only built 5 miles of in 4 years, that Mexico was supposed to pay for, that ain't never paid for. So my tax dollars don't have to go to wall building anymore. So okay, we're gonna stop building the wall. Okay. I mean, you're laughing. These are positives.
And that is a positive. I'm laughing because it was just one of those things that when it was said, it was idiotic to begin with. And all you had to do was sit back and see what morons actually believed it would happen. We're going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it.
Well, about 5 miles of it got done.
I'm still trying to figure out who did that. But anywho. You're right.
Well,
Okay.
that was under Trump, so you know that happened. So okay, so we've gotten some positives.
Yes.
Okay, whole lot of talk about equality, equity, inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so there is a specific language on that I heard today that we're going to, and I'll kind of count this as a positive, but I don't know. There's some kind of coalition addressing xenophobia specifically towards the Asian community as it pertains to COVID-19.
So
See, this is where somebody's gonna call you are xenophobic because I'm trying to understand. First of all, how are you going to deal with that? How is that? I have not. Okay, here's okay. There's some things I have to consider. I have not heard. I mean, besides the commentary that Trump made calling COVID the China virus
right.
or the Wu-Tang, not the Wu-Tang, Wuhan. Not the Wu-Tang, but the oh Lord. We're recording this, it's late. It's late, y'all.
Oh,
So
God.
the Wuhan, so you know that kind of ridiculous commentary. I have not, and I could have missed it, but I've not seen a lot of commentary or speaking out from the Asian community saying they have felt particularly victimized in regards to the last year in reference to corona. I mean, there's been scattered incidents, but I've not seen this epidemic of violence again. And I'm not saying there should be. I'm just when you're talking about an executive order in your first week, I I I was a little thrown by it, but I'm gonna tell you what it made me think of. But you respond to that, and then I'm gonna tie it into something that I told my audience about a while ago, and then y'all gonna start listening to me. But
I mean,
my hair. Go ahead.
file under maybe because I'm not Chinese, I'm a tad bit unaffected, and I don't say that to be insensitive. I say it to be factual. I, like you, have not. I've of all of the rhetoric and nonsense I've heard spewed from the MAGA crowd, I have not heard of a lot of Chinese folks saying, "Hey, this is a serious problem," and "Hey, we're being denied opportunities," or this or that, because King MAGA is calling it the China virus. So I guess it's a good thing. But
I mean, you don't want discrimination for anyone, but
great.
I'm just trying. I could not make sense of how in the first week, because when I think about executive orders, your first bit of executive orders, I'm thinking emergent issues,
Right.
issues that we got to get to them because we got to solve this. We got to fix things immediately.
Right.
And listen, audience, and I the floor is open. You can always hit us up. You know where to find us. By the way, have you subscribed? We have a YouTube channel. I'm going right here, right now. We have a YouTube channel. We're on SoundCloud. We're on Stitcher. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. We're at all these places. We have an email address. You can, if you, for whatever reason, you want to send an email, because enough people do, it's everybodylovesbliss@gmail. So your commentary is welcome. We're going to have more places for you to send it. Back to the issue at hand. I was just thrown by that as your way of moving towards inclusion and equity. When we talk about inclusion and equity, I just thought it was interesting that xenophobia for the Asian community was your first week's project. Listen, I'm an African American woman. Oh, I can hardly say it. I'm an African American woman. I'm part of the foundational collective of African Americans. I'm very much aware of all of the disparities in this country. I'm very aware of the ancestral debt owed to African Americans in this country, and I just said it. I don't understand how that was a first week's issue. I'm not, and I again, I am not pushing. I'm not. I don't believe in excluding folks. We're talking about first week executive orders. So there's that. But here's where, when I started to think about it, it made sense. I don't know if you were part of the show when I talked about this. One of the promises Kamala made when she was running for president, not when she was assigned and chosen for the vice president position, one of the promises that Kamala made was to the Asian, Indian, Pacific Island community, that she was going to work on laws and regulations that gave them more opportunities. So when I thought about this executive order, I thought, oh, this is right in line. Because remember, Kamala fits several categories, not just African American. She also fits the category of Asian, because remember, East Indians are considered a part of that Asian collective. So now that makes sense why that would be in the first, because this is politics, people. This is politics. So that was her promise. And I've talked about it on the show in prior episodes. I can't tell you which episode. You gotta go back and listen, or just look it up yourself. This is Kamala during the campaign of president, not you didn't hear this discussion during, I didn't hear the discussion as she was doing her bid for vice president, because she didn't really have to do the bid. She was just on the ticket. So go back to those early campaign promises. And I'm not saying she should or should not have. I'm saying be aware, because here I go. Because this is also the same Kamala that told Black folks, I'm not going to do anything specifically for you. I'm just saying, listen, it is what it is. I sometimes I feel like you don't like to be that guy. I'm being that girl. I'm just being very honest. It's politics. It is what it is. So, okay. I think go ahead. What you gonna say?
I don't know. It's just as you just said. This is the problem with the American political landscape. It's exactly what you just said. It's about who. I thought the objective was to serve the people, right? Just to serve the people, not specific people per se. If there's certain group of people need help, then help them. But it just seems like it's all, well, let me hook up my people, whoever my people are considered to be. Because I'm like, when you loop it around like you just did, it's like, did the Asian American or the Chinese American population suffer from extreme xenophobia? Like, I could see this in 2002 for Muslims. That would make perfect sense after 9/11. But I don't recall, and again, I'm not Chinese, clearly, but I don't recall the Chinese population suffering to the point where there needed to be an executive order signed to right the wrong. And that is not me being insensitive. That is me simply saying I'm not aware or wasn't aware it was that big a deal.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I just want people to be aware. So let's talk about some of the other executive orders. How about the executive order that gives protection in the workplace against discrimination for sexual orientation and gender identity?
What?
I thought that was covered already under EEOC.
Is
How
The only thing I can do to say to make sense of that, and I don't know. Again, if you know and I don't, that'd be awesome.
I don't.
Is that a state thing, and the executive order makes it federal, like, or is that across the board already, and this is superfluous? Like,
I thought, now I could be wrong, but I really thought that that was covered under EEOC because most people yearly have to do a training on sexual harassment and discrimination.
right.
Most employers require employees to do some kind of training because nobody wants litigation based on sexual harassment. So I'm trying to figure out how this executive order is different from the laws that are on the books. And if I'm not mistaken, they're federal laws. So what is this executive order doing? I was like, do I not understand what an executive order is? I mean, it's not like the president comes in and has to okay every law on the books and say, yeah, we're keeping this, we're not keeping this. So I could not, like, that was so unclear. It is exactly what is already in place with EEOC. And what you have to do, a lot of employees have to do a training on every year. So what are we missing?
A lot, clearly, because, and excuse me, it makes me wonder, like, I don't know the order of operations here. Here's what I mean. Is it a case of, all right, I'm walking in an office, there's 20 things that need to be done. 10 of them are just a swipe of a pen. Let's get the little things out the way first that don't require a whole bunch of in-depth, so on and so forth. Or is it because in the grand scheme of things, when you run down what's going on in real time right now, pandemic, so many families and people slipping into poverty, student loan debt, medical, out of everything going on, this is priority? Like, this
Well,
makes
it's not even for me a matter of whether this particular executive order is a priority. I'm wondering, how does this change what's already in place? That's and let me tell you why we're doing this. So not you, but the audience. It is because most of us are not reading these executive orders. Most of us are not even giving a cursory glance to them. I decided to do that because I feel like if we're going to discuss something, we should at least have some information. So when I'm looking down this list, I'm like, wow, some of this, there's a lot of redundancy in these executive orders. And we're going to get to those too. But that one stood out particularly for me because it just basically protections against workplace are already there. There's nothing that speaks to. So basically what we're saying is that some of this is flimsy. Some of these executives, they're flimsy and they're redundant. Because I'm looking at the masks in airports, federal buildings, and on public transportation. What? Okay, that's been in place for how many months now? So we have this right. So you got that executive order, then you got the 100-day mask challenge. What? It's this. It is essentially the same thing. So for 100 days, we're gonna challenge Americans to wear their. I'm looking at because I'm perplexed. We're gonna challenge Americans to wear their masks, and especially on federal property. Can you go into your post? You're in Texas. Can you go into your post office, that federal building without a mask on?
No, you can't go into Applebee's without a mask on.
So and listen, again, I'm trying to be positive, but I'm looking at this stuff. So what I'm thinking is the politicians, not just Biden, they depend on our laziness. They depend on the fact that we don't fact check and that we like to be fed information.
I mean, they depend on that with each other. Um, my Congress Bay, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she pointed out with the last bill, with the last coronavirus bill, it was like 5,000 pages. Who has time to read 5,000 pages? And this is how you slide in X amount of millions of dollars to other countries and X million of dollars to art galleries that aren't open. That's how you do it. They depend on the inability of their own colleagues to read through this stuff.
Exactly. But these were simple enough to go through. So let's go through some more of these, shall we?
Oh,
There's a call to accelerate vaccine manufacturing. That's an executive order. How do you implement that? These vaccines are not being, as far as we know, they're not being developed or distributed by the federal government, meaning that the pharmaceutical companies are making them, they're passing them out through the medical communities. There's some government oversight, but how do you mandate the acceleration of vaccine manufacturing? Because what I'm asking, how do you do that without just passing out money incentives for it? How do you do that? And with that, wouldn't you need to add something to the FDA for checks and balances for safety? Since we're questioning right now whether Hank Aaron, a national treasure, whether he died of natural causes or whether he died because the vaccine killed him. I'm just, listen, I'm sorry.
Causes.
Say that again.
The article I sent you said he died of natural causes. There was no connection to the coronavirus vaccine.
Are you trying to get me to go into a whole discussion on the folks that I know who've taken the vaccine? Some of them have taken it and have been fine, but are you trying to do that? I'm not going to do it. I'm not, because that's not what this debate is about. But you put into this is part of one of the executive orders that you want to accelerate vaccine manufacturing. How do you do that without offering these companies an incentive? And where's the FDA with the checks and balances? Are we opening up jobs with the FDA now? Because I'm sure you don't have enough employees to make sure that the efficacy of these vaccines that you want to push out even faster when they're already questionable, you need more employees to help cover that, because you do want to protect the American people. Or does it matter because you can't, when you take a vaccine, you can't sue? So everybody's covered. Is that what it's the question to ask. It's an executive order. Listen, don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you.
What the problem is when you have big pharma in bed with your government. But because again, this is not the stuff that tinfoil hat predictions are made of. We are literally just asking very basic
questions.
And it's like,
It's basic questions. This is hidden in plain sight. And let me tell you, some of the first list I looked at was right on CNN's page. So it's not like I had to look far to find the list. Okay, we hit on this a little bit. So, Fauci's back. Excuse me. Your favorite guy, Fauci's back. And United States is back with the World Health Organization. So we back in bed with the World Health Organization. So Fauci just did he just did an interview. I can't remember who the interview was with. It might have been with CNN. It was who?
Today Show.
Oh, it was Today Show. Thank you. So he just did an interview. And so we're waiting for the rollout. Now, he admitted that the numbers are actually dropping for COVID. So even though the news would have you think that people are dropping like fly, and listen, let me be a little more sensitive about how I talk about COVID, because I do realize that COVID is serious. I know that many of you have lost loved ones to COVID. I'm not trying to be insensitive when I talk about this. I just want to be clear about that. But he's admitted that they've seen a decline in numbers. But the push now, of course, is for everyone to get the vaccine. Okay. So that's the push. That's we I think we all know that now, that that's what the agenda is for everyone want to get the vaccine. There are so many millions they wanted vaccinated per day. And I'm thinking, why are you counting everybody? Because some of us are not trying to be in those numbers, but okay. So the advice Fauci gives, double mask.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry.
How does that make sense?
Um,
How does double masking make sense? I'm just
it,
how
okay.
does that, because so if you understand biologically what you when you're, first of all, we've never talked about type of masks, like what is really safe, because I'm seeing companies making masks out of like thick polyester, not flammable materials that I'm seeing people wearing. So the ability to breathe freely is encumbered. It's going to be encumbered a bit with any mask. But when you're talking about double masking on some of these fabrics that people are wearing, is that safe? Is that ethical? And why, if we're talking about, we're trying to prevent, why has, and I keep going back to this, and I'm going to keep going back to this until Dr. Anthony Fauci answers the question. Why is he not talking about the supplemental things that people can do very easily to help prevent? I'm not saying completely prevent, because I wouldn't make that claim, even though I believe what I believe. Why are you telling people to double mask when you're talking about the the carbon, you're blocking it, like your lung, do the damage that double. I mean, I could like it's almost like when you're hearing stuff, it was like that was a joke, right? Because I was waiting for him to go psych. Psych, I'm just kidding. He never said psych. He was like,
He was using 5-year-old logic because the way the host worded the question was, do you think double masking is a good idea? And Fauci's response, paraphrasing here, was, well, the point of the mask is to prevent things from being inhaled or what have you. So common sense would say 2 masks would add to the prevention. The things that you need to be asking questions about, this goes back to, let's ask some very basic questions here. One, there is a difference between an actual mask and a face covering. That's one. Two, if you have an N95 mask, there is no need for 2 of them. But he wasn't really descript in that. He just left that out there, kind of like he's been omitting the vitamin C and vitamin D. So I
almost equate that to drinking bleach.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's not quite there, but it's almost there. It's in the family. I'm sorry. Listen, listen, people, I'm being positive. I really am. I'm just giving you the information. I'm just giving you the information. You don't like it. I'm sorry. These things are happening.
It's just scary because make it hard for us, please. We're not even digging deep. This is basic.
I didn't dig deep at all for this.
What do you mean, too, man? This is basic. You're not even making it hard to figure out. You're kind of twisting the truth a bit.
I didn't dig deep for this at all. I was like, let me see what the executive orders are looking like. What are people doing? Oh, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Oh, let's keep on. Let's keep on. So we have the moratorium. I think we touched this the last podcast, to extend the national moratorium on evictions and foreclosures until at least March 31st. Sir, where's the task force? We're the economists that are going to fix the issue, because the problem with the moratorium is the same that it's been since you first had a moratorium. What do you do at the end of the time? where's the bailout? Remember Obama gave the bailout to the banks because of the mortgage issues?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the bailouts? Why are we not? There's been enough time where this problem has gone on. You've seen enough landlords who have filed already. There are landlords with their finger on the trigger, right? Because they've gotten the paperwork, they've gotten the okays to evict. They can't do it because of the moratorium. That's the only thing keeping them. They've already filed. It didn't stop the filing. We've talked about this before. So the moratorium is a Band-Aid on a severed limb. Where is the executive order? Because you didn't put anything in place to fix the economy. So you're not going to fix the economy in 60 days, right? So, okay, and that's reasonable. I don't expect that he would. Where is the task force, the accountants, the money management group that's going, or the housing group? Because he talked about fixing equality in housing. First of all, you can't offer. Okay, this is one issue at a time. So let me stick to this one. So the evictions and these are not just renters, these are people losing their homes. So you're talking about foreclosures. Now remember, because this is important, this is where race-based executive orders and action has to come into play. Remember, and for those of you who don't know, African-American people lost wealth in the Obama days because of the mortgage situation. I'm sorry. What? Why? Okay, he's making a face. What are you making a face? What? I can't say that?
Oh,
no, this show is about truth. So the wealth gap got bigger. Remember, African-Americans only owned a half of a percentage of the wealth in this country. Nothing, basically. So if you doubled that to 1%, for African-American people, that would be significant. Okay. Sadly, 1% would be significant. So you've got this issue. So now we are, another issue. So when you talk about disparity, I bet if we looked at people who are getting ready to lose homes, unfortunately, a large number of those people, because of job loss in the African-American community, would be African-American homeowners. So my first thing is, you got to fix you can't keep putting a moratorium. It's like I'm pushing off surgery. Like, I know I need surgery. I just don't want to do it. So I just keep pushing it away. My issue doesn't get better because I decided that I keep pushing off months and months. If the surgery is like, what? So where's the mandate that goes along with the executive order that we're going to do some kind of bailout, that we even have a conversation going? None. There's no executive order for that. So what happened was, we got to today or yesterday, I don't know, we've been the last day or so, we have the conversation about housing discrimination and equalizing that. First of all, and some of y'all are not going to like this, you can't fix it by trying to equal the playing field now. You've got to repair. The wealth gap will not get fixed because now you're going to say everybody gets the same rate for a loan, or you stop redlining. That doesn't fix the issue, because the qualifications, if I don't have a job, or if people in my community don't have jobs, they don't qualify, even if you make it fair across the board, because of the issues with the economy, first and foremost. Second, you've got decades of discrimination that have built the wealth gap. Home ownership is for communities the way to wealth. Property ownership. You gotta fix that. You cannot equalize that out without repair. That's why the conversation for reparations has got to happen.
Boom.
So these executive orders, while they sound good because they're using words like inclusion and equity, and we want to make the country better, bullshit. I'm sorry, bullshit, until you really get to the meat and potatoes of what's happening here. And again, I'm being positive, but I just want to tell the truth. I mean, I just feel like sometimes I'm looking at this stuff and I'm going, because I know we have these conversations all the time. I'm like, do people not see this? Do they? But I realize they don't see it because they don't read it. They get fed the snippets because the snippets sound really good, especially if you just want to feel good. If I just want to feel good, I just listen to depending on the news channel, because Fox ain't having it. Because the conservative news channels are like, this is anti-American, all this help that he's giving to the immigrants, and we're gonna get to that in a minute. But depending on where you go for your news, these very liberal news stations are making you think like, oh, thank you, like I said, thank you, Jesus, the Savior has come. It is not. No, these executive orders are not doing that. I'm sorry. I'm going. Let me take a sip because I didn't got myself riled up. But go ahead.
This is. I think people need to understand the weight and the gravity of what's going on here. Your friend of mine, Obama, was given a bit of a pass because the everlasting eternal excuse is, well, he had a Republican Congress, so he couldn't get nothing done. Okay, fine.
Okay.
No, we have now a royal flush. The president is Democratic, Congress is now Democratic. There is nothing to stop anything. So at this point, if it doesn't get done, there is literally no excuse. You didn't want to get it done. So let's see how this plays out. Because within the wake and the ashes of everything Trump did, it pretty much made him darn near unelectable. I said that. I can't believe it was close as it was, but it darn near made him unelectable. But at this point, if the Democrats blow this in the next 4 years, ooh, and we're off to a very interesting start already.
But here's the thing. Just like when Obama was president, some people still don't get what happened. They still don't get what happened because, like you said, it's about the symbolism. And I am guilty of it to a certain degree too. Obama's got great swagger. He's got great swagger. I can't knock that. Obama's articulate. He's a handsome man. He had a beautiful Black wife with great style. He has beautiful Black daughters. I loved seeing that. I needed to see that. I was like, I wanted my grandmother to see that. In my lifetime, if I decide to have children, I can tell my kids there was a Black president, even if there's never one, we never see one again. There's a Black vice president. There's something in that symbolism that, you hold on to a little bit, but I gotta tell the truth. And so when we talk about them blowing it, people don't even know what happened when we had our last Democratic president. And I'll even remove the Blackness from it. When we had our last Democratic, they are still not clear about what happened. And see, for communities that are not in critical need, they can do that. They can be unaware. Black folks, you can't be unaware. You can't continue. The wealth gap is huge. The health gap, the disparities with health, because we're talking about a COVID vaccine. And see, here's the thing with the COVID vaccine. Here's why you got to rethink. Health disparities don't just happen in the way you're treated when you go to the hospital. So somebody treats you bad. It's not about you not getting the surgery you need. It's not just about you not getting the pain medication you need, or people thinking you can take more pain than you can because you're Black. It is about the medication itself. Don't we remember when HIV, when those first cocktails came out, the Black male participants who tried those drugs, their bodies reacted differently than the white participants. So it's not just about how you get treated or you did stuff you don't get. It's the medication itself. Your body's different. That's why we keep going back to the D. The information that you get, even when you get tested for things like that, is not correct. So you have to question. And you've got to look at this differently. We've got to question everything and we've got to examine everything. Because even in places where even if we were trying to give the benefit of the doubt, okay? If the consideration wasn't made for how these particular drugs affect melanated bodies, you're going to have, it doesn't matter how you disperse the medication, the results may not be what you want anyway. And generally, that happens. So the stuff that we're talking about is important. We cannot afford to fall asleep unless we want to fall off the planet completely. Now that's the other option, because we love, Black folks love to buy and buy. We love the idea of, everything's gonna be better in the buy and buy. So maybe for a lot of folks, they're just thinking, my time here, the golden, when we get to the gold, maybe that's what you folks are thinking. I don't know. That's not really my thinking. So that, I'm just saying, Ross, help me out here.
Orders are interesting. Somebody wake me up when we get to the lift every voice plan. Help me when we get to that part. Because remember,
but you're there.
There's a plan for Black folk. The lift every voice plan.
No.
Plan. When do we get to that part?
Sir, the lift every voice. Did we not tell folks? We told the folks early on. People of color, they've covered it with xenophobia with Asians. There's your people of color and your Native Americans. They've covered minorities with all. Here we go. The LGBTQ, they got a whole handful of help and stuff passed in their favor. And again, I am not, this is not about, because y'all love transphobic, y'all done come, the LGBTQ done come up with so many phobics, I can't even keep count. Y'all can miss me with that bullshit. I'm going to tell you right now, you can miss me with it, because we're just going to tell some truth. So there's a law passed and an executive order. Let's be clear. So I'm going to summarize it. It expands the coverage. So your school, okay, so I'm going to give you an example, and this is how I interpret it. So LGBTQ folks, if I'm interpreting it wrong, please correct me. I'm open to that. So basically, somebody identifies as trans. So your football player, who is the football player last week, comes to decide he's LGBT. He's trans. And why I'm using this time frame is that there's a question about self-identity and when you have to act on self-identity. So if I say I'm something, do you have to treat me immediately the way that I'm verbalizing my identity, if that makes sense? So even though I may not have had hormones or I may not have had therapy, if I'm understanding correctly, if somebody self-identifies as transgender or a male says he's now understand he's female, you have to act on that versus having documentation and proof and all of that stuff. So that means if he wants to join, now that the girls sports team, he can join volleyball team, and the locker room situation, there becomes a discussion now, because you got to let the person who's identified as trans into the locker room with their identified gender.
Okay.
And somewhere in that language, they've taken, now this is how this works. There's a mentioning, and I should have had the quote in front of me, but there was mention about protections for the trans community, which obviously this protects, because it certainly does not protect the biological identified male or female. It protects the trans community because you're not necessarily, here's the problem with this, and I'm going to say it if nobody else says it. Sometimes when you're protecting one group, you're putting another group at risk. And we need to start having a discussion about how we're going to fix that. So there's no language in what I've read with these executive orders that cover the LGBTQ community on how you protect the LGBTQ community and protect the hetero community as well in terms of that, how we come to some kind of mid ground. I've not seen that. The other interesting thing is that in this language, there are the words intersectional, which if you remember, intersectional prior to this new way I'm seeing this word being used had been a word of that an African American woman came up with to identify all her isms, meaning being a woman who experiences sexism, being a Black person who experiences racism, and at a certain age experiences ageism, and if you're disabled and all of these things, and there's that intersectionality. The language used in describing and talking about some of these executive orders that cover the LGBTQ community, interestingly enough, is starting to use the terms intersectional. And also there's some quote from Biden about protections. Specifically, this helps the Black trans community that is disproportionately at risk. And I'm getting ready to catch some hell here. I think that we need to look at compare. I'm just going to say this to the listener. I want you to look at the number of Black youth, 18 and under, killed last year, and then look at the number of trans identified Black folks killed last year. And I'm going to challenge you to look at that for the last 10 years. And then I want to have then I want you to really, I'm taking too long in between here because I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but which one is the pandemic or epidemic? That's all I'm going to say, because I think that we've got to stop telling these narratives that don't make sense, because they don't do anything to bring us together. What they do is they keep us butting heads and they keep us divided. We've got to tell the truth about what's happening in the community. And we can't allow politicians to use us, because that I felt like the Black community in this whole language for the LGBTQ community is being used in this. And when you talk about lift every voice and sing, all of the things that we were looking for that we need to be dealing with, again, health disparities, which cover the trans community, by the way, in the Black community, wealth disparities, housing, that gets missed because you mix us into a community that's not really ours. And I'm going to shut up on that, but because I'm going off on a tangent, but it's there, so you don't have to take my word for it. That's all I'm saying. Let me take a sip.
I'll say that I don't know. I personally don't know any trans people. So I don't know the level of urgency that this rises to. But again, it goes back to what I mentioned when we started this.
Let me pause you.
Mm-hmm.
This is about numbers. Okay? So that's why I didn't bring up my personal interaction with trans community. Mm-hmm. What I did was said, let's look at the numbers.
Right. And as I'm like, when you run down the list of things that we are facing as Americans, even, especially as Black people, I would think, and I'm just jumping out on a limb here, but I would think even someone that's Black and trans would agree on the level of priority, figuring out how not to get evicted versus being able to play on a sports team. I'm going to go with, how do we not get evicted? I'm going to go with $600 just ain't enough. How do we get the other $1,400 to make it $2,000? Like it's not being quote unquote transphobic at all. I'm just looking at the level of things that need to be dealt with. I would think money in our pockets to keep our bills paid is a lot more important than, hey, I'm trans and I want to play on the other team. Just saying.
And we've simplified it. Just to say that's a simplification of it, but at the end of the day, what you're saying is correct. Where is the priority? Where the money reside? But like the game, where the money reside? Where? I mean, seriously, where is the money? The $600? How many? What is it? What are we at now? For $1.50, you can sponsor an American. Where are we at now with that?
This is January. So from March to January, that is about 10 months, $1,800.
So what's that? $1.25? Oh,
that's $180.
I don't. My math is off.
So $180 a month. And,
I mean,
so what? That's not even. That's about 45. That's $45 a week.
Okay. And this is with folks still fighting to get unemployment. The eviction moratorium. So they got 2 more months to sweat and panic without getting any additional monies and still fighting with unemployment. Some people are. So what are we doing? What are we doing?
The rich are getting richer.
And right, there's been a transfer of wealth. Can you tell the story about the Tesla stock? Because I didn't get that. So you gave me a really good story.
Took a look at it, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here because I was skimmed through it, but the end result, and this is a problem. Nancy Pelosi apparently bought some Tesla stock not too long ago, before either shortly after the pandemic started, right before, but bought some Tesla stock. It is now gained quite a bit. And the inherent issue is, in some way, shape, or form, and I apologize, but you can check the article. I can find it for everybody, and we can post it later. There are some rules within the Biden administration that will make that stock possibly gain even more money. In current day, I think she's made a gain of about 1.5 million based on those purchases.
I'm going to ask you to say that again because from where I'm hearing, your sound went out a little bit.
Okay.
So tell us again your sound. We lost some of your, at least from my perspective. And folks, again, we're doing this audio video, so we're trying to make sure the sound is great for you. But let's say that again about what happened.
Nancy Pelosi made his purchase of Tesla stock last year, either shortly into or right before the pandemic broke. Those stocks have now gained quite a bit, somewhere to the tune of about $1.5 million. And there are some provisions within Biden's administration that, once put in place, could make those stocks gain even more money. Now, I apologize. I will make sure you've got the article so you can post it and you can see all the details. But yeah, this is a problem. Why do we have millionaire Congress people making decisions for us?
Listen, I'm not one of those people that thinks that people can't make money. I'm not anti-rich, folks. I'm not that. But I am anti-disparities. I am anti putting your foot on people's neck in order to gain wealth. I'm not saying that that's what happened in this situation, but the exchange of wealth that has happened in the time of COVID is staggering. If you pay, and we're not going to get deep into that, but we're going to come back and really get into that in a different podcast. But it's frightening. So yeah, but someone would argue that you can't necessarily tell how well stock is in her protection because she didn't sell, like the situation with Martha Stewart where she sold off because they knew it was going to plummet. So in a situation where the stock just grows, I don't know how you would argue that, because that's what the insinuation sounds like. There's some insider information, and we're not suggesting that. You're just giving the facts. Yeah. So let's talk about some other things that are in the news. Let me just give you this before someone says, well, you know, Biden did do something for Black folks. He did do something for Black folks, not African Americans, but this is one I thought was interesting, that he extended the deferral on deportation for Liberians. So Liberians who have safe havens in the United States, and actually that time frame is pretty decent. It's specific for Liberia till June 30th of 2022. So Liberians here under safe haven are protected. The deferrals have the protections are there until June 30th of 2020. I don't know, but that seems so random, doesn't it? I mean, that was specific for, Africans. I guess because, we don't know. I mean, there's expansion on DACA and the Dream Act. There's no real specifics on how that's going to work. It's very vague. It's kind of odd because we're extending protections for immigrants that are here, even those who are here illegally, but we had to close the borders to people coming in because of COVID. We just had to not close the borders, but because of COVID, we've had to put some bans on. So I mean, it becomes like, okay, so how do we handle this? But yeah, so just some of the things that have happened, but we're going to keep talking while this is going on, these first 100 days. So I'm going to say to you, we're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you the truth. You can interpret and read all of the stuff that we're talking about. It's hidden in plain sight. Most of you have not read. I know you've not read because you're like most Americans, you're waiting for the sound bites. But yeah, these are just some of the things that we've gone over for you tonight. There'll be more. But let's talk about something that I found hilarious, because I said to you last week, I said, listen, the Capitol, the riots on the Capitol, a lot of those folks, they're gonna be flying again. They'll be fine. You're talking about it's a federal crime and they got to do 85%. Okay. Are you right? Go ahead.
Well, see, I'm thinking it's different though, because like this isn't a case where if it's state level and it's you get 5 years, 4.5 years suspended, and you do probation and life is good. This is if you get 5 years, you got 25% of that time. That's no joke in the fact.
Okay, that ain't a lot of time. Okay, but here's what I'm going to tell you. A lot of those folks are going to get a slap on the wrist, and there's some really interesting defenses. So the gentleman who is the shaman, I don't have his name in front of me. Was it oh Lord.
He's got 2 different names.
I'll pull him up. The shaman, the guy from the insurrection. How do I not have his name in front of me? He's a QAnon. He was called the Q shaman. That was his name. I'll get his name. But his defense, I think his defense is pretty solid. It's going to be an interesting court battle. But he's saying, first of all, for his first defense was that he was following Trump's rules. Or mandates or Trump's orders saying to go to the Capitol. His second line of defense is that he said he didn't break in anything because when he got there, the Capitol police officer at the door held the door open.
Kind of hard to argue that point.
Oh, your sound is better. Okay, exactly. If I come to your house and you open the door and you hold the door open for me, I have not broken into your home.
Like whatever else I fuck up after I get in there, that's really not on me because you let me in.
Well, his argument is there is no footage of him damaging anything. He's simply there in the place that he was allowed into. He's standing with his spear, chanting and mumbling whatever he was doing. And he was directed by Trump. Now, we can laugh at that. What are you going to say? Go ahead.
Because you mean to tell me after all this, what we're looking at here is pretty much a trespassing charge? Really?
Um,
No. It's
do
got
not
to be heavier than that. It's got to be heavier than that.
do not be surprised.
I have to be surprised. I'm going to be. Listen. There is in the legal field. There's what they say. There's the law and there is the spirit of the law, right? Jaywalking is illegal, clearly. But the spirit of it is like, look, it can be used to pull you over, to stop you, so on and so forth. To apply that here, not directly, but kind of indirectly, listen, it's trespassing, right? But you stormed the Capitol. From an American standpoint, you have just intruded on everything we hold holy. You cannot just get a trespassing charge.
Who is we?
America.
Who is a part of that? That ain't me. I wasn't
gonna do that. I wasn't there. I ain't gonna do that. But I'm just saying, you can't let this. If you're Biden, you can't let this ride. You can't let this ride. You just can't.
Biden doesn't let it ride. Let me just say this. If it doesn't, this is not going to be a Biden issue, because this is always going to be attached to Trump. This is never going to be attached to Biden. And let me tell you, this is about the laws. This is about the laws, the legalities. By the way, his name is Jake Angeli. That's one of his names. He also goes by Jacob Chansley. Chansley, I think, is his government name. I didn't know this, but he's also an actor, on top of all those other things, being a shaman and a healer. He's also an actor. So let me just tell you what's going to happen with him. He's going to get a slap on the wrist because he's already got his organic food. So he's going to get a slap on the wrist. Because remember, he was going to go on a hunger streak. Oh,
right. He wasn't eating because he couldn't get his organic diet, and the damn judge said, okay,
organic diet. So
give him his Whole Foods.
Right. He got his Whole Foods. His argument, is whether we like it or not, the argument is compelling. My president told me to go. They held the door open for me. You don't have any picture, and maybe unless they find some pictures of him doing something violent, I was simply there, my constitutional right, voicing my opinion as a patriot. Mark my words. Now, the people that are going to wait, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead and get it off your chest, honey. Go ahead.
Emmett Till was killed for less. A fucking whistle got Emmett Till killed.
Okay? We don't even know if he whistled. But Emmett Till, okay, and I get it. I don't know if that's the right equivalent. I don't know about that, but I understand your being impassioned as a Black man and understanding that if your Black ass or my Black ass had done that, well, first of all, you ain't gonna get to do that because the Capitol Police would have had their gas masks and rubber bullets, and they would have been ready to gas you. So that wouldn't have happened, because if that was a Black organization, because there's other organizations besides Black Lives Matter, if that would have been any other Black organization, they would have been prepared, and you wouldn't have gotten that treatment. So you can't even we're seeing it from the scope of being Black in America. But truth is that this is going to, I'm telling you, there's a lot of those folks that are going to get a slap on the wrist. Is there going to be a police officer that testified that he was violent against them? Did he cause any damage to property? Are they going to be able to prove that? He was there. Trump told him to go. The door was held open. And I'm telling you, this is just my prediction. He's going to get a slap on the wrist. Now, the folks that are going to get more intense charges, higher sentences, are the ones that were violent and were in fights with other police officers. So the folks that they've got on tape, because we've already started talking about one of the most violent people in the insurrection was a former Marine. Because you got to keep in mind the people who participated. You had Capitol Police officers who were working there on that day. You had police officers from all over the country, active and retired. You had firefighters. You've identified firefighters, both active and retired. They've identified military, both active and retired. They're not going to take all those groups down. They're going to find the worst apples. They're going to pick the worst apples, the ones that they've got that they know were violent, that caused damage. Those are the ones who are going to get this high sentences. So folks like the shaman, the actor, Jake Angeli. And Jake Angeli, I'm going to tell you, in a year or two is going to start getting acting work. Mark my words. He's going to do some talk show circuit, and he's going to get work. I said it.
That's just disgusting. Like, honestly, that's just disgusting.
It's America. It's America.
You know, and they also talked about the young lady that stole the laptop and tried to sell it to Russians. She's at home. That compared to Khalif Browder. The disparity in this system.
Tell the audience who Khalif Browder is. You can't, because I'm going to tell you that Khalif Browder story. You tell them who, because just in case we have someone listening who does not know who you're talking
Khalif
about.
Browder was a young man in New York City who was arrested for allegedly taking a backpack and sat in Rikers Island in some part of that from solitary confinement for 3 years, and after his release ended up committing suicide for, remember here, allegedly stealing a backpack. This young lady took a laptop and tried to sell it to the Russians, and she's at home.
Federal property. So that's a form of terrorism.
That's treason.
It's treason. Yep.
That's punishable by death last time I checked.
Yeah, well, she ain't gonna get death. And she ain't gonna get a whole lot of time. I'm gonna tell you that. And Khalif Browder, when you tell that story, I'm gonna say is that it's not allegedly, because it was proven he did not steal a backpack. He sat in prison because his family could not afford to pay. What was his bond? It was in the hundreds. It was like a couple of $100. His family could not afford to pay for like a $500 bail or bond, whatever it was, bail. He sat in prison for that long. He was abused. He was put in solitary. And when he was finally released, because he was released, but wasn't it one of those organizations that proved
I believe so.
Proved his innocence. And the abuse that he received in prison was so atrocious, because he was beaten by guards, beaten by prisoners, that I think he was raped several times. When he came out, and the damage was done, and therapy did not fix that for him. And there's a documentary on Netflix. I've never been able to get through that documentary. I didn't know you were going to bring that up. I have never been able to get through. I can't get through it. I think I got through the first episode, maybe part of the second, but I could not stop the tears. That story is horrific, because the moments where you see Khalif Browder, because this is somebody who really made, I can't even believe we're talking about this now, but he made a real attempt to try to recover. So there's video of him talking about his experience and what it did to him. And there was a real effort. And when you see this kid, he's just a sweet, kind, gentle soul. And the system ate him up. It ate him up and basically is responsible for his death. So when you see Ross talking in that impassioned way about what goes on in this country, yeah, that's an example right there of just the system continuing to fail. And I go back to what we talked about these executive orders. they're band-aids on, severed limbs, basically. I mean,
Mhm.
when and that is with us still trying to be as positive and hopeful as we can be. But we know the story. We know these stories. So it is incumbent upon us to bring this to your attention so that you're aware, so that we don't fall asleep. We don't have 4 years to fall asleep again.
You know,
Because COVID is not just because the time we live in the COVID times, that's what I call it. It is not just about your health. It is about how you survive economically. The job loss, the disparities are in the job losses. The disparities are in who is at risk for being evicted and who's at risk for losing their home. So we got to get serious. Lazy Joe, Sleepy Joe you just can't let it, because I say that because I'm also concerned about Joe's slurred speech. That's a whole other thing. He seems a little, that's in real, that's
remember
being
he
honest.
used to have a speech impediment. I don't know if that
Oh
might
yeah,
be
I didn't
related,
know
but
that.
he because I thought in all honesty, I thought the same thing you did. Like I saw like the last debate he did. I'm like, it's like, ooh, this is not looking good. But then I found out he used to have a speech impediment. I think he used to I don't know if it's politically correct, but I think he used to stutter. And I'm presuming, of
um,
course, when you get nervous, it kind of comes back a
that's
little
not what
bit.
I heard. That's not what I heard. No,
Oh,
that's
okay.
a slowing down that I'm hearing. I wasn't
Yeah.
hearing stuttering. I'm hearing a, you know what? Let me stop, because now now we're just gonna sound mean, and I'm not trying to sound mean.
Yeah. I
I'm just
understand.
I'm just we listen, we're just bringing the stuff to you. We're just
Yeah.
bringing it to them. We had a conversation. We told you we were gonna look at the executive orders. We looked at them. We examined them. I hope that you will after hearing this podcast, because I'm worn out. I, I mean, really, let's give it another week, because he's churning them out. Because we didn't even really get into the amnesty for we touched on it, but there's amnesty for illegal immigrants at this point. That's gonna get real interesting when it's time to figure out the job market,
Yeah, it's
when
just
it's time to
don't.
build this economy.
What's gonna get scary and interesting at the same time is, you know, when Trump got in office, it's almost like it was his mission in life to undo everything Obama did, right? I hope this doesn't become, I'm gonna undo everything Trump did just for the sake of undoing it. Like
No,
seriously examine it.
no, that's not what that's not necessarily what it looks like, when you're looking at it on paper, because there's I mean, things like taking the money away from the wall. That's an undoing of Trump.
Yeah, necessary.
Reversing the situation with the World Health Organization. That's a liberal agenda. That's I think that any Democratic president coming in, for any Republican president who had done that, they were going to do that. I don't think that that's necessarily a Trump thing, even though I don't think anybody else but Trump would have done that. So mending that relationship, not saying it's a good one, because I've said this and I'm going to say it again. I think Trump was right in questioning and ending that relationship with the World Health Organization and moving Fauci out. I don't care if y'all don't like it. I said what I said. So with that, I think that there are some things that made you would have expected from a Democratic regime. I call them
Yeah.
regimes. So that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like I'm just under, because like I said, the whole deal with the protections against gender and sexual orientation, it was like, that is not even, that's EEOC. Like I said, that's already in place. Like I still don't, if somebody help, like if y'all are listening, help us understand that. I cannot see how that is different from what is already in place. I see no, I'm not getting that one. But when you talk about reversing, then he reversed the ban on transgenders in the military. So that's a, and I'm okay with that. I don't think that that's necessary, because if you're, I mean, I don't know.
Listen, can you shoot? Cool. Let's
Right.
go.
I'm not,
Like,
I
I
mean,
don't.
I don't want us to, because we question some of the things that he did for LGBTQ, for people to think that we're, again, the people think what they want. This is not about being anti-transphobic, homophobic, any of that. It's about priorities. So I'm still asking where the money reside when it comes to fixing this economy. When you gonna get to that? When you gonna fix the housing issue? When is the coalition, the task force going to happen that's going to fix that? Because 2 months and people on the streets. Where's the bailout? Oh, and by the way, the words that Biden used tonight, he said something to the effect of, I want to wait till you put down your drink. We're building on the work Obama started. And if you're African American, what does that mean to you? We are African American. So what does that mean to us?
Nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. to the population at large, I'm sure that's going to mean an awful lot. To me specifically, nothing. But like, what work did he start? What did I?
Well, I mean, if you talk about trickle down effect, like Obamacare, I think Obamacare is great, but it's a trickle down effect. Does it repair? Does it really equalize? Because again, I'm going to say this one last time, Black wealth went down in those 8 years.
Ooh-wee. I mean, that's a little bit of truth serum that a lot of folk who look like you and I do not wish to drink. And again, it goes back to, we love the symbolism. We love Mr. Yes, we can. We love the audacity of hope, and it didn't do shit.
I hope, as I'm interjecting, I hope that everybody still loves Bliss. No, I know I know I love my audience, because I know that they listen because they know we're gonna give. It is what it is.
I mean, the challenge that always stands up. Where's the lie? That's an open challenge to anyone watching, listening. Again, where's the lie? If we're wrong, say we're wrong. But men lie, women lie, numbers don't.
You can comment on SoundCloud. You can comment on the Facebook page. You can comment, because if we're wrong, okay, then all I did was read you the information that's out there already. I didn't put words in anyone's mouth. I didn't change the narratives. Neither did Ross. So, and on that note, Mr. Cooper, we made it through the second video audio podcast. I think I could get used to this.
It's good. It's good to actually see you now.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, Mr. Cooper. Nice to see you. So, and I hope our audience likes seeing us, because here we are. So I'm going to wrap this up, good fellow. So listen, if nobody's told you today, we want to tell you we love you and we want the best for you. And we look forward to you coming back next week for another episode of Everybody Loves Bliss. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.